Hello and thanks for watching. I'm Renee Murphy. We know in this uncertain time that you have lots of questions about what's going to happen next in learning. It certainly is a big question. Our Board of Education hasn't made a decision yet about whether or not we will return to in-person classes in October, but we anticipate having a decision by the end of September. We've been listening to your feedback, and one request that we've had from many of our families is a request for more information about what future learning options will look like. It's our goal to answer many of your questions. This is a start. We'll be answering more as we continue in this process of keeping you informed. We'll be talking with 3 district leaders, Dr. Carmen Coleman, who is our Chief Academic Officer, Chris Perkins, who is our Chief Operations Officer, and Eva Stone, who is our Manager of District Health. Share this video with your friends and family and watch with your children. We are all in this together. We are joined now by our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Carmen Coleman, who is here now to tell us more about the online experience. Again, no decisions have been made about what's going to be happening as we continue on with learning in JCPS, but she's going to tell us more about what families can expect during NTI if we do continue on this path.
Yeah, I think it's fair to expect for things to continue to get better. Our teachers have been in a real learning curve. We all have over the last several months. But I think we can anticipate that things will continue to become more smooth and more like routine. You know, this is how we do business. And so I think things will continue to get better.
I know at the beginning of the year we changed from Google Meet to Microsoft Teams, and then there was an option for teachers to use either one of those platforms to continue on with the online live learning and instruction. So moving forward, can families expect any other changes?
I don't think so. I think now, you know, our goal when we started was, and still is, to be consistent and to limit the tools we used for our families. We certainly weren't expecting the interruption between Google Meets and Microsoft Teams, but we have to adapt, and we did, and so we certainly don't anticipate any further changes like that, but you know, in the world we live in, that we just have to be ready.
We'll be ready if anything comes up. Well, if we do return to in-person learning, will there be a virtual option for families?
There will. So if and when we return to in-person learning, families will have the option of enrolling in virtual school, most likely at their home school, but each school will have a virtual option.
So how will that be different than NTI?
So during NTI, you know, kids are still using different kinds of resources. Teachers, for example, don't have to use the Realize platform, our virtual school platform, for digital curriculum. But if you choose the virtual school option, that Savas Realize platform is what we will be using in that virtual setting.
And that's a different platform. That's different than Google Classroom, right?
It is. It is. Google Classroom is just think about a true classroom space online. The Savas Realize platform truly has a virtual digital curriculum inside.
So that would be something else families would need to be accustomed to. It will be different.
It will be a little bit different if their teachers are not using them now. One reason we wanted to go ahead and provide a license for this for every student is so that teachers can go ahead now and use that resource, and we'd really like to minimize, you know, transitions. So every student has access now, but if their family chooses that virtual option, the Savas Realize platform will be consistently used.
Right, so the virtual option that's available, a look ahead if we continue NTI as well. Thank you very much, Dr. Coleman. While no decision has been made at this time, we are walking you through the different options that are available as we enter into the next phase of learning. So now we're taking a look at what it would look like for students if we do return to in-person instruction. So we're going to start at the beginning of the day and kind of walk through what that experience will be like for students. We're joined now with Chris Perkins, who is our Chief Operations Officer for JCPS. So we'll start at the beginning. In the morning, if a student is riding the bus, can you tell us what that will be like and what safety measures will be taken on the bus?
So we'll start the day with encouraging students to socially distance at the bus stop first of all. When students enter the bus, they'll be required to have on face covering. If they don't have one with them, one will be provided for them as they enter the bus. There will also be hand sanitizer available as they board the bus. And students will load toward the back of the bus and then work their way forward as the bus fills up.
Can students be socially distant in all of our classrooms?
We are working to make sure that we remove as much furniture as we can from classrooms and optimize the amount of space between students by spreading desks out and maybe repurposing some areas within the classroom. But then also looking at, some of our classrooms have tables and chairs in them, and so one recommendation is that chairs all face the same direction. So we'll be looking at opportunities to provide students additional tools so that they can still sit at tables but maybe not be facing each other while they're working.
Would students have to stay in their classrooms all day?
Obviously the ideal is for students to not have to move around and interact in close proximity to one another as much as possible. And so, elementary classrooms are predominantly set up where students stay in their homeroom teacher's classroom for the bulk of the day. Middle and high school classes tend to change quite a bit more. So we'll be working with high school and middle school principals, looking at their schedule, class changes, to try to minimize opportunities for students to cross paths with one another and come within that proximity of 6 feet.
So will students be able to eat in the cafeteria?
So yes, students will still be eating in cafeterias, but we're also going to look at taking advantage of some of the other larger spaces that a lot of schools have, maybe auditoriums, gymnasiums, lobbies, things of that nature, to where we can spread students out to socially distance while they are eating.
So what is the plan to keep all the buildings as clean as possible?
We have a pretty stringent cleaning regimen that we follow in accordance to CDC guidelines. We will make sure that classrooms are cleaned daily, and that a lot of the high contact surfaces are cleaned throughout the day.
Do we have enough personal protective equipment to return to in-person instruction?
We do. We have enough PPE inventory right now to provide schools with kind of a back-to-school care package, if you will, for all students and staff members. We have inventory in our warehouse currently and are working to secure up to 6 months of inventory just to maintain adequate supplies.
I know you guys are hard at work. Thank you very much, Chris. While we wait for our board to make a decision about what will happen with school, we are continuing to provide information for you. And we're joined now by our Manager of District Health, Eva Stone, to walk us through some of the steps that what it could look like if we do go back to school in person and ways that we're working to keep everyone safe. So Eva, will parents have to fill out a form stating that their child does not have any COVID symptoms or doesn't have a fever before they can come to school?
So we're working on a process for parents to be able to fill out to do that health screening each day. And whether that's electronic or whether we have parents sign an attestation or a form that says you won't send your child to school if they're sick, it'll be one of those processes, but there'll be a process in place for parents to be able to do a health screening.
And so if a child does make it to school and they become sick later, what will be done to keep those around the child and the child as safe as possible?
So the state has given us some guidelines for what to do when kids become sick at school, and so every school will have a designated place for isolation or a place for kids to wait. Of course, they'll be supervised until somebody can pick them up, but to keep them away from other students and staff.
So will students have to have a temperature check before coming into the school building and before they get on the school bus?
So temperature checks will be required when kids come to school, but not when they get on the school bus. Temperature checks will be required when they get to the school buildings.
Okay. Will students have to be masked at all times that they are in the building, even if they're more than 6 feet apart?
So the original guidelines that the state gave us said initially that kids under first grade, so kindergartners and early childhood, would not need to wear masks. But that guidance has changed because of some updates that the Center for Disease Control made. So now all students will be required to wear masks, even when they're spaced 6 feet apart in the classrooms. And so the only time that students won't be wearing masks is when they're eating or when they're drinking. And this is a change from what we learned originally. But it's important for us to remember that every step we take, everything we do, is one more layer of protection for students and staff. And so masks are one important way that we have of slowing the spread of the virus.
So if students are outdoors, will they still have to keep their masks on?
When kids are outdoors, yes, they will be wearing their masks. The exceptions we've been given are for when they're eating and drinking. Anytime we can't make sure that they'll be 6 feet apart at all times, students will be asked to mask when they're inside and outside if they can't be 6 feet apart.
Okay. Well, the state has now provided some new guidance with a color-coded chart that they have that outlines where districts are right now in terms of COVID-19 cases. Can you explain more about how that chart works and how families who are looking at this chart can understand how that relates to JCPS?
This color-coded chart is going to be a big help for us, for families, for school districts, to help make determinations on the safety of bringing kids back to school. And so the chart is divided into 4 colors. It's green, yellow, orange, and red. And we'll look at the numbers each week. We'll look at the percentage of the number of people who are sick for the county, and we'll use that to make a determination about how we're delivering school services. And so it gives us an objective measure, a way to look at when can kids be in school and when should we be doing things differently to help keep everybody safe.
I know this is some guidance that a lot of districts have been looking for. I know in Jefferson County we were looking for that direction as well. Eva Stone, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. We hope that we were able to answer some of your questions. Again, this is just the beginning. We'll continue to answer your questions throughout this process. Stay with us. We will keep you informed.